You can spend six figures on the most beautiful kitchen in the neighborhood. New cabinets, a slab of quartzite, appliances that cost more than your first car. And you can still find yourself apologizing every night, saying sorry, excuse me, to the same person in the same spot, over and over, while you're just trying to get dinner on the table. There's one word that predicts whether a kitchen actually works, and it has nothing to do with how it looks. By the end of this video, you're going to test your own kitchen against it with nothing more than a piece of paper and a pen. So keep that in the back of your mind, because we're coming back to it. After 25 years of designing functional kitchens, I can tell you the one word that predicts it, and it's movement. It's the first thing I check when I look at a layout, and honestly, it's usually the real reason a beautiful kitchen still feels broken, even with brand new everything. It shows up in tiny everyday moments most people never think to blame on the design itself. Two people reaching for the same drawer, someone hovering awkwardly by the fridge waiting for a gap to open up, a hot pan carried past a toddler's snack station. None of that is bad luck. It's almost always fixable, and it starts with understanding exactly what movement means. Let's break it down piece by piece until you're ready for that test. The two zones every kitchen has. Every kitchen splits into two kinds of space, whether you planned it that way or not. There's the protected zone, where the actual cooking happens, and there's the access zone, where people pass through to grab a drink, check the fridge, or microwave leftovers. The person cooking should command most of that protected zone without interruption. Everyone else, the casual traffic, should be able to do their thing on the outer edge without ever cutting through the middle. They only meet at the border. That's the whole principle. Most of the kitchen belongs to whoever is doing the work. The rest is for quick, casual access. And it works the same whether it's one person cooking or 5 people crowded in for a holiday dinner. Picture a Sunday afternoon when the kids come over with the grandkids. Someone's stirring a pot, someone's grabbing a soda from the fridge, and a grandkid is hunting for a snack in the pantry. If your kitchen is built around these two zones, all three of those things can happen at once without anyone getting in anyone's way. And you get to actually enjoy having your family over instead of feeling like traffic control. If it isn't, that same scene turns into a slow-motion traffic jam, and you're the one stuck untangling it. The kitchen. Pyramid, where things actually live. Once you understand the two zones, the next question is where things get stored. And this is where a lot of kitchens quietly fall apart. Every task should be able to happen inside the zone where it belongs. Prep should live near prep. Cooking tools should live near the range. Cleanup supplies should live near the sink. Sounds obvious. But walk through your own kitchen doing one task and count how many times you leave that zone to grab something. That number tells you almost everything. If chopping vegetables means walking across the kitchen twice for a cutting board and a mixing bowl, that's not a storage problem. That's a movement problem wearing a storage costume. Your prep area is the command center. It's where you'll spend the most time, so it deserves the most support. A prep sink here, even a small one, takes real pressure off your main sink. Trash access here does the same thing. The goal is a self-contained system, not a scavenger hunt. That takes care of prep. But there's a second layer that decides whether that protected zone stays protected at all. And it comes down to which connections you're actually defending. Not all connections matter equally. Some paths in your kitchen get used constantly. Others barely get used at all. Treating them the same is one of the most common planning mistakes. Your primary connection is the one you can't compromise on, the sink to the range. This is the path you walk over and over while cooking, and it should never have foot traffic crossing through it. No island seating, no trash can, no fridge sitting in that line. Your secondary connections still matter, but they can tolerate a little more distance. Fridge to prep counter, dishwasher to dish storage. These get used often, just not on every single step of every task. Your tertiary connections are the ones you can let go of. Used occasionally, fine to walk a bit further for, like the connection between your everyday dish storage and a rarely used stand mixer stored in a lower cabinet. Once you sort your kitchen's relationships into these three tiers, you'll know exactly where to fight for space and where you can relax. That sorting only matters, though, if your layout gives you the room to axie on it. So let's talk about layout. Layout, what actually works and what fights you. Not every layout protects your primary connection equally well. An L-shaped kitchen with an island naturally separates cook from traffic, because the island itself becomes a buffer. Picture the sink and range both on the long wall, with the island sitting between that work zone and the rest of the room. Anyone grabbing a snack stays on the far side of the island, never crossing into the actual cooking path. A U-shaped kitchen does something similar by wrapping the work zone on 3 sides, which is part of why so many people who cook often gravitate toward this layout. The cook is essentially standing inside a small protected horseshoe, and casual traffic simply never has a reason to enter it. A galley kitchen has to work harder, because a single walkway often serves as both the cook zone and the through zone at the same time. If that galley also happens to be the main path between the living room and the backyard, every trip for a cold drink turns into a trip through the middle of dinner prep. That doesn't mean galley kitchens are broken. It means every appliance placement decision in a galley kitchen carries more weight because there's less room for error. I've seen L-shaped kitchens with beautiful islands that still have terrible movement because the fridge ended up on the wrong side of the island and every casual trip cut straight through the cook zone anyway. And I've seen tight galley kitchens that flow perfectly, simply because the designer respected the primary connection and refused to compromise on it. The layout gives you a head start or a handicap. It doesn't decide the outcome on its own. What if you don't have room for an island? If you're in an apartment, a condo, or an older galley kitchen, you don't get to solve this with layout alone, and that's fine. The connection hierarchy still works without one. Protect your primary connection first, even if it's tight. Keep the fridge and any casual access items as close to the entry point as possible, so people can grab what they need without walking the length of the kitchen. And lean harder on vertical storage and closed zones instead of spreading tasks out, since you don't have the square footage to separate them by distance. A small kitchen with a defended primary connection can still outperform a large kitchen with none. Appliance placement. The fridge is doing more damage than you think. Once your layout is set, appliance placement decides whether your primary connection survives daily use. The fridge gets opened by everyone, at every hour, for every reason. If it sits between your sink and your range, it turns your primary connection into a hallway. Position it where casual traffic can reach it without ever entering the cook zone. The same logic applies to the microwave. An over-the-range microwave might save cabinet space, but it plants a high-traffic appliance directly inside your cook zone. A wall oven, when you have room for one, solves a similar problem. It lets someone grab something from the oven while another person works the range without either one blocking the other. Small appliances count too. A blender that gets used for both meal prep and a quick smoothie on the way out the door needs a home that doesn't force that second person into your workspace. The same goes for a coffee station. If the coffee maker lives right next to the range, you've just guaranteed that the first thing that happens every morning is someone standing in your primary connection before you've even started breakfast. The disruptor. Nobody plans for. The family pet. Almost nobody accounts for this one, and almost every kitchen has it. A water bowl or a food dish sitting right in the access zone, or worse, right in the walkway between the sink and the range. It sounds small, but think about how often it actually causes a problem. Someone steps around it while carrying a hot pan. It gets kicked accidentally during a busy dinner. It becomes the one obstacle that quietly breaks the flow you worked so hard to protect everywhere else. If you have a dog or a cat, treat their feeding spot the same way you treat any other access zone item. Keep it out of the primary connection and give it a spot near the edge of the kitchen where casual traffic already happens, not in the middle of where the real work gets done. This matters even more if the pet itself tends to hover near the stove or the sink while food is being prepared, which, if you own a dog, you already know is more of a guarantee than a possibility. A designated spot away from the primary connection, ideally somewhere the pet can still see the room without sitting in the walkway, solves both problems at once. It keeps the cook zone clear, and it gives the pet a place that's actually theirs instead of whatever open patch of floor happens to be available. Clearance. The part people either ignore or overcorrect. Clearance is one of those things you don't notice until it's wrong, in either direction. Too little clearance creates real problems. Doors that can't open fully, drawers that jam against a corner, appliances installed too close to a doorway. As a general guideline that most kitchen designers work from, aim for something in the neighborhood of 2 feet between an appliance and a corner wherever you can. It's not a hard rule for every kitchen, but it's a reasonable target to plan around. But too much clearance is its own failure. If your kitchen has ever been described as having a dance floor in the middle, that's not a compliment. Oversized clearance around an island forces extra steps into every task, and it mostly benefits the people who aren't doing the cooking. There's one more clearance issue people rarely plan for, and it's not spatial, it's acoustic. Hard countertops, tall ceilings, and few soft surfaces reflect sound instead of absorbing it, which is why open-concept kitchens tend to develop noticeable echo, especially when they open straight into a living room. A rug, some drapery, or even upholstered stools nearby can quiet that down without changing your layout at all. Lighting along the movement path. Movement doesn't stop being a safety issue just because the sun goes down. A dimly lit path between the sink and the range causes the exact same collisions and near misses as a bad layout. It just happens at night, when nobody's expecting it. Under cabinet lighting along your primary connection does more than look nice in photos. It means you can actually see the edge of the counter, the handle of an open dishwasher, or someone else stepping into the kitchen behind you. The access zone deserves the same attention. A well-lit path to the fridge or the pantry means a late-night snack run doesn't turn into someone stubbing a toe in the dark. This connects to something worth remembering about every part of a kitchen. Safety and movement are almost always the same conversation, just told from two different angles. Aging in place. Movement that has to work for years, not just today. Everything we've covered so far assumes the kitchen has to work today, but for a lot of homeowners, the real question is whether it will still work in 10 or 15 years. Especially if the plan is to stay in this house, with the kids and grandkids still coming through that kitchen door for years to come. This could imply rethinking clearance in a way that goes beyond comfort and into necessity. A protected zone that's comfortable for two people standing might not be wide enough for a walker or a wheelchair to navigate later on. Based on what we know about how mobility needs tend to change over time, it's worth building in a little extra clearance now, even if it feels unnecessary today, rather than trying to retrofit a tight kitchen later. The same logic applies to flooring near the primary connection. Slip resistance right around the sink and range matters more with time, not less. In a seated prep area, even a simple pull-out counter at a lower height can make the difference between someone continuing to cook independently or gradually stepping back from the kitchen altogether. Even something as small as a discreet grab bar built into a cabinet end near the range, styled to look like a handle rather than a medical fixture, can quietly extend how long someone feels steady and confident cooking on their own. None of this has to look clinical. It just has to be planned early, because moving a wall later is a very different project than leaving room for one now. We can reasonably assume that a kitchen planned with this kind of flexibility in mind tends to age with the people using it, instead of working against them. The professional check. Every kitchen designer approaches this a little differently, but when a kitchen was planned by someone experienced, it tends to naturally line up with most of what we just covered, even without anyone naming these principles out loud. That's less of a coincidence and more a sign that the underlying logic tends to hold up under real daily use, not just in photos. The 5-task test. Here's the test I promised at the start. Sketch a rough floor plan, nothing fancy, just walls and appliances. Then draw the movement path for 5 common tasks: prepping a meal, unloading the dishwasher, bringing in groceries, cooking dinner, and grabbing a snack. Now look at where those paths cross. Every crossing point is a moment where two people are likely to collide in real life. You'll never get to 0 crossings, and that's not the goal. The goal is simply fewer of them than you have right now. If you find a cluster of crossings around one specific spot, like the fridge or the microwave, that's usually your clearest, cheapest fix. Moving an appliance a few feet is a much smaller project than most people assume, and it's often the single change that does the most work. Before you go, if your layout looks unconventional on paper but it actually works for how you live, that's not a mistake, that's good design. And if it doesn't work yet, that's not a failure either. It just means there's a fix waiting to happen, and usually a smaller one than you'd think. Tell me in the comments what layout decision you made that raised eyebrows, and whether it ended up working. I read every one, and it genuinely shapes what I cover next.